Good evening, good people. This is your host, Calvin Anderson, for the Checking With podcast. Today, I have another amazing guest, Dr. Chris Deussing from the States. What compelled me to get Dr. Chris onto the podcast is from our previous conversation and just seeing his podcast and seeing the things he posts on LinkedIn and his affinity for not just the field, but just for people in general is what drew me to ask him to come on. And we had a brief conversation before where we spoke about the complexities of the field. We spoke about, being a therapist. We spoke about going beyond our actual tangible training that we've gone on. And today you're going to hear him speak in depth about these things. So ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Dr. Chris Deussing. Dr. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. I like the bass in your voice, as you said, Deussing. It makes me feel empowered. So happy to be here, so blessed. And just to get ahead of it, we're probably going to hear a little bit about some Philadelphia Eagles football because we're in the Super Bowl on Sunday. And that is definitely on my mind. So therapeutic philosophy and thought influenced by the green of the Philadelphia Eagles.
No, bless you, Dr. Chris. Thank you so much for coming on. Dr. Chris, I guess for the listeners and for myself, can you just give us a brief origin story of why you've come into the field and why you wanted to become a therapist?
Right. So the canned answer would be I want to help people. However, I am very aware that I come from a wounded place, and I feel the best healers, I believe that the best healers are wounded healers. So my origins truly go back to my family, overcoming trauma, my past, really integrating it into my present and future. Also lines up with my values. I mean, my father told me that from a very young age, I was always wanting to help people. So I feel like this is woven into my DNA. And I just love it. I just love it. And there's just so much to learn. And I was a philosophy major in undergraduate in college. And I feel like being a therapist, since there really aren't philosophers anymore, it's a way to be a philosopher without calling yourself one. Learning from people's journeys, gaining wisdom from my life experience. So in many ways, it lines up that way as well, along with the incredible individuals that are in this field. I am never ceases to amaze me the incredible souls that are in this pursuit, this healing process. And so that fuels me to no end.
I love how you began with, the candid answer being you wanted to help people, but you believe and you know that the best healers are the ones that came in the first wounded, where we were wounded healers. And I feel like it's so true just in terms of my own journey as well and where I've come from and the things I've had to go through and similar experience to yourself. So it's just interesting to hear that and to start it off in terms of people think therapists are like, well, just the super people, where we got these powers and we're great when it's really true. No, we've been through multiple things. We've seen the things we've seen in different dimensions and different lenses, and we're so relatable that if you were to speak to us on the street and you didn't know that we were therapists, you'd probably have an amazing conversation. Dr. Chris, speak on, for me, the beyond therapy, because we've had a conversation about it before in terms of the humanizing and the humanization of therapists, beyond the theory, beyond the actual training that we went through. Speak to me on when we spoke about beyond therapy and just going beyond our actual kind of modalities and approaches.
Sure. It's a big question, Calvin. I'll do my best to knock down what you've set up. But we are involved in a technical time, right? A techno-industrial time, a time that is very based in science, right? That really pays credence to the scientific method, proven, effective, evidence-based practice. Connected with that is the current landscape of psychotherapy. So when I run into you, Calvin, and I ask you, who are you as a professional? We immediately say, usually, our theoretical orientation. I'm a psychoanalyst. I'm a DBT therapist. I actually see it much differently. We are all human beings in this together. in terms of I'm a human being, and I know DBT, and hopefully I have tools that can help you out. Or I am an individual, I'm a human being, and I have psychoanalytic training that fits with me. And hopefully that can help you out. So I really think we need to return to the existential humanistic um, grounding in therapy, because all therapy, and shout out to Jenny Collard over at Rutland House, is relational. She told me that, and that kind of sticks with me, because no matter what modality we're operating from, it's relational, it's human, and if we forget that, therapy runs the risk of becoming something that is just technical mastery. I know this modality and I know this theory and I've mastered it. And then I treat this particular diagnosis with this particular theoretical orientation.
Yeah.
And there are definite advantages to that. Absolutely. With psychometrics and assessments, we need that. We need to measure, we need to observe, and we also need to remember the bigger picture of it, that we are all human beings suffering. And how can we work with the human condition in our different ways, our different modalities, and come together to bring about healing, both on an individualistic sense and also a collective sense? Who are we as human beings functioning individually, microscopically, and then broadening that out in terms of who are we in relation to the globe and the globalization of everything.
Just to touch on the relational aspect, if there's a therapist who, has heard what you just said, Dr. Chris, and they're like, how do I make it more relational? My whole study, my whole training was textbook heavy. There wasn't any practical examples. We didn't do triads. We didn't do any experience where it was me and another person in front of each other. It was just all textbook heavy. Where would you say or guide them to go or to start?
Approach with a beginner's mind. So there is so much knowledge in the textbooks, and I'm sure we'll be talking about theory and deep theory, and that is a wonderful world. And the other side of that dialectic is, in my own personal experience, I've actually had to unlearn a lot of the stuff that I learned from textbooks and traditional schooling.
Yeah.
And everything that you need to operate in a therapy session is in the here and now. It's in that therapeutic moment. It's in therapeutic relationship, which also, let me touch a little bit on that.
Please.
I feel like the word therapeutic relationship is thrown around a lot as a bit of a platitude. Like, what's most important in therapy? The therapeutic relationship. Well, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean we're coming from a place of unconditional regard and holding the client, perhaps in a more maternal way, right?
Yeah.
Or is that perhaps a little bit more of a confrontive, or perhaps a more paternalistic, guiding the client, and everything else in between? It's an interesting dialectic that I've been thinking a lot about in terms of formulating therapy. Do we have to be more of a mother figure or more of a father figure? And here's the rub. We have to grow to have range between the two. So perhaps me and you as men, the paternal comes pretty easily. The masculine energy comes pretty easy. And we have to grow to be able to give more of the feminine energy and be able to hold people and nurture people.
Yeah.
So those are some of my free associations there. And that's another thing. Instead of trying to control, can we release control and become okay with uncertainty? Can we sit in the here and now and not have to fix everything? In a solution-focused, brief therapy, instantaneous gratification culture, that's given us the mirage as therapists that we need to have all the answers. And a lot of therapy is just the embodiment of the here and now, that therapeutic edge that's unfolding in every single moment of the session. It almost is like a choreographed dance. I almost like to think of it in terms of, how are we choreographing what the client needs? A lot of times that's empathy. How are we conducting a dance of empathy? And doing that not in a technically proficient way, but a deeply authentic way, because clients will pick up on that. in the second if you're operating from the manual. And we have to infuse whatever modality we're delivering, no matter how adherent, with the humanity that's inherent in every therapist. So those are some of the things I would tell someone with a lot of textbook training. And a lot of people I train too, from the first day, I tell them, you know a lot more than you think you know, just from your life experience, just from your lived experience. And that's one thing I love about the social work profession and about clinical social workers is we definitely give credence to the diagnostics
Yeah.
and the DSM, but we're always coming back to our use of self.
The lived experience. I love how you mentioned when you train people, Dr. Chris, that you know more than you think you do. Like you start off with that. And even when you said it to me, I could just feel the empowerment. I could feel just the relaxation and I guess the shoulders dropping of your students in terms of, you know, they might come in feeling, oh, you know, Dr. Chris is this and he's done all this and having such high regard. But when you speak, it's like, okay, he actually understands us. He's been where we've been. We don't need to be afraid or, you know, be a certain way. Like he's really given us his time and he's showing us that we actually know what we're doing before we even begin, which I think is so powerful. Dr. Chris, talk to me on deep theory. Talk to me on, I guess, as we spoke before, the integrative or integrative aspect to what we do. Because yes, there are singular modalities where each one has their own field and their own thing in which they deliver and give to the client. But talk to me on the integrative aspect of things.
Sure, sure. Well, before I go there, though,
Yeah.
in terms of training people too, I just want to tie that loose end up. Another thing I impart upon anyone who's embarking on training with me, which is another one of my passions, is that I am incredibly human. I am just as fallible as I was when I was starting my training. I make mistakes every single day. Sessions today, I've come out of them like, wow, I could have done a lot better at that. So we have to cut ourselves grace and realize that the journey never ends. When we stop learning from the profession and our clients, and if you're teaching individuals, our students, learning from our students, then it's time to close it up and leave the profession. This is not a profession where there's really an endpoint. So to connect that to deep theory, that voracious learning, I see, first of all, a divide. Because when we think of theory, the first association usually is academia, right? Theories coming out of academia, it's dissertations, all this wonderful knowledge, which befuddles me because the paradox is we have all this incredible knowledge with all these incredible thinkers who have spent so much time, and it's all locked away in ivory towers or university stacks gathering dust. So the other end of that is practice, right? And kind of knowledge through practice and the practical application and the technical application. And so we see theory explained in workshops, right? Explained in seminars. If you go to a training on trauma, they'll talk about trauma theory.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's how to apply it in the everyday. I've come into touch with myself, and this is one of my passions moving forward, is to go deep with the theory. I'm calling it deep theory. And I take this as a convicted approach, a determined approach to really go into the theory fearlessly, non-judgmentally, with a beginner's mind, no matter my bias, no matter my theoretical orientation. If my first reaction towards psychoanalysis is dead, right? Actually, I want to go read some psychoanalysis because oftentimes opinions like that are coming from blind spots. And I speak about that from personal experience. I was in psychoanalytic training for about 8 years. And during that time, I judged CBT and DBT. I was like, no, that stuff doesn't work. We need insight for change. Lo and behold, I ended up working on DBT adherent team, thinking about how DBT can be integrated. But to come back to deep theory, exposing ourselves to various theoretical orientations, going deep into the theory, reading fearlessly, finding the intersectionalities and where these theories converge versus where these theories are disparate and separated, which I think is the usual way that we look at it. And going into that and thinking very abstractly, philosophizing. This is where I feel like the philosophy of therapy has gotten lost, philosophizing about these models and how to bring them together in an inclusive way that respects high fidelity, not mindless eclecticism and cannibalism. I'm going to pull this from this and this and this, and I'm an eclectic, but really doing this in the spirit of pushing the theory and the knowledge base forward so that we can practice in a more evolved way. Because honestly, Calvin, I feel like me and you are poking around in the dark, and I'm excited for the future generation of clinicians to pick it up where we're poking around.
I definitely love just in terms of the tangibility you gave in that answer, in terms of the theory, in terms of just really learning the thing, but really going and exploring it to its full entity, rather than it being, like you said earlier, like just a textbook. It's just this one page or it's a whole book and then that's it. Like really exploring it, really going into the depths of it, but also keeping that relational aspect at the foundation of it as well. Someone who is coming into our field, Dr. Chris, and the theory aspect is heavy, they're not too sure. How would someone, or how would you suggest someone navigate the theory aspect or the deep theory when it comes to learning in our field?
Don't be afraid of reading and going into the stacks. And don't be afraid if you don't know what the hell they're talking about. I feel like I I joke with some of my colleagues. I have a couple reading groups going, which that's been another revelation in terms of we need to continue our academic education far beyond when we graduate. We need to be reading dense academic articles throughout our careers. If anything, I feel like that's really lacking. We have so much peer supervision and case consults, but what about theoretical consults? Anyways, don't be afraid if you run into a paper, because I run into them all the time and I'm like, wow, this paper is really taking me into the back alley and it's shoving me around and it's mugging me right now. It's taking my wallet and making me feel kind of stupid, right?
Yeah.
So no worry, no foul, right? Go back and read it again, right? Take what you can. Even I've read articles where I've been like, wow, okay, overall, this leaves me in a very heady space. But there's been one paragraph that's been like, wow, that's gold.
Yeah.
And this is also too where AI can come in.
Mm.
If I read a theory and there's a paragraph that really throws me for a loop, I'll just go to my old friend. I've been calling it Chat GBT, but it is Chat GPT. But feed it into Chat GPT and say, explain this to me like I'm a kindergartner. And you'd be surprised that what can come out of that is wonderful. The double-edged sword, though, with that and AI tech, we are here. We are radically accepting it. I don't fully agree with it. I radically accept it. It's an incredible tool. We do have to be careful, though. Going into deep theory isn't feeding it into AI and asking for the answers. Because once we get into that loop, we're confusing knowing a lot of information with understanding. So I feel like in terms of understanding theory, we need to go a little bit analog. I print out my papers to write. I highlight them and I mark them up. I listen to audio recordings of the articles, people reading and recording the articles. So if I'm on the gym, on a treadmill, instead of listening to music, I'm listening to academic articles. And I'm taking it in chunks, just little chunks here and there. And if you find a theorist that you enjoy, follow them. And this ties into something I wanted to say earlier, too.
Yeah.
The landscape is dominated by a few theorists, right? Running the same seminars and workshops over and over again. And that also, too, is just market demand and marketing. There are so many theorists under what is being presented. I call them like the underground theorists. They're oftentimes female, right? Let's go into those underground theorists and see what knowledge percolates up from that. A great example is The Body Keeps the Score. Incredible book.
Incredible book. Yeah.
Bessel van der Kolk. Incredible. No one talks about Dr. Judith Herman and her incredible book, Trauma and Recovery. Van der Kolk and Herman worked very closely together. However, again, kind of lost in the midst. So I'm very big about lifting those voices and being like, look at all these voices here. You have such a plethora to choose from.
Yeah.
And theory doesn't need to be 100% correct. The theory, the spirit of theory is meant to just abstractly think about these things. So then we can set up models and research. And honestly, I feel like come up with multimodal theories, trans-theoretical and trans-diagnostic theories, integrative theories. I feel like that's the cutting edge.
The one thing that everything you said took me away, but the one thing that really like stood out was when you said that theory doesn't have to be 100% correct. And when you said that, I don't think I've ever heard that before, because we're so used to people saying, this is the facts, this is this, and that's it. But when you said that to me, Dr. Chris, what came to me was, because it's not 100% correct, and because there are these modes or modalities being created where research is at its core, it gives us, the learner, freedom and reign to go and explore reasons why it isn't 100% or the reasons why it is and what it's connected to. And then from there, like you said, becoming a theorist in our own right and building our own repertoire, building that particular thing that we are in search of. So I love how there's that freedom to have discussions, have research, have talks, find readings. In some ways, and when you said it, I kind of took it as, this isn't the end. There is more to just take in and so much more to learn. We're not finished. This isn't the final run. This is what it is. Go. Here you go. I'm going to give it to you. And whatever you want to do with it, you decide. But I'm just letting you know, we haven't even scratched the surface of what this really can become.
No, we haven't. And what does every research study end with in its conclusions? More research is warranted. So
Always.
we could even apply that to theory.
Yeah.
More theory is warranted. Can we look at theory in an imaginative way, in a creative way, in an artistic way, not necessarily a completely cerebral and scientific way? That dialectic between art and science, I feel like, is one that permeates this work. Yeah. If we lose the artistic, we lose the soul of this profession.
Dr. Chris, I wanted to even ask you about that. Why do many people kind of just stay with the cerebral aspect and not keep the imagination, creative side of our field within research or in their work? They just want it to be facts, evidence-based, and that's it. You kind of can hold the reins. Whereas, as you mentioned, having that imagination and having that exploration, there's so much more to grasp. Why would you say there is that aspect of just kind of keeping it cerebral rather than having that exploration aspect to it in a creative sense?
It's a great question. Well, I think that's the way the system has operated for so long that we don't know that bias, that this is just the system that we work in. I also think education can be reflected in this. So I've noticed that in the younger generation of clinicians, it really is a prescribed path. You go to school for psychology, you pay your dues, undergrad, you go to your master's program, you get your clinical licensure, just psychology straight through and through. This is a bit of a reflection. My path is a bit of a divergence because I come from a very strong humanities background. Psychology was not my major. I took one psychology class in undergrad. I was a philosophy, English, and religion major, right? Yeah. And I feel that the modern and contemporary bias towards science, right? In the United States, we call it STEM, science, technology, education. We lose sight of the humanities of it. And even humanities education in the United States, it's dwindling. It's dwindling because we've equated college with, I need to get a profession that makes money. Anyways, back to the psychology field. If you have students coming from that narrow path, of course, it's going to exclude all this color that's there. And the education system doesn't provide experiences like internships and things like that to give them the true underground knowledge, the undercurrents that they're not going to get in their traditional education. We're also in an age, I mean, this has been going a long time, the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, the scientific positivism, where the secular, the corporeal world, this material world around us gets elevated to that is what the truth is. If we can't observe it, if we can't feel it through our senses, we can't measure it. And if you pull that, therefore it doesn't exist. That can be the conclusion you come to. I respect that. I also see it as a little silly. No disrespect needed. I feel like there's so much more than we can sense. I mean, think of light, right? There's so much different types of light spectrum that we can't, like infrared light, right? Ultraviolet light. So I tend to think of therapy as almost an energetic exchange. There's some type of energy going on in the words that we talk about, in the feelings that I'm evoking in you, the feelings that you're evoking in me, transference, countertransference, two of my favorite words.
Yes.
So I think like that scientific bias, and I really think too, it's gotten catalyzed and accelerated by technology. If we think about digital thinking, it's binary, it's zeros and ones, it's very black and white. Sure, there's going to be quantum computing, and there's computing that's coming online that is trying to mimic human intelligence. And I may die on this hill. However, when the AI terminators come for me, I may die on this hill. However, I think that there's something so intangible and so irreducible about the human intelligence, the HI, the analog intelligence, that we forget about in these techno-industrial times. So those are a few of my thoughts. That's a really big question. I'm going to have to go in with my deep theory hat one of these late evenings and theorize about it.
Yeah, definitely this isn't the last time we're going to have you on the pod and just us discussing in general. Dr. Chris, just upon that, because you spoke about the technologies, the AI, the things that are coming, talk to us about the future of our field. What do you see? What do you feel? How do you think it's going to become, or what do you think it's going to be moving forward? And yeah, just your insight and your thoughts and feelings about that.
It really can vacillate. Sometimes I am incredibly hopeful for the future of this profession. And then sometimes I hear a colleague, we were just talking this morning about one of their clients is now increasingly going to AI for their interventions, or what skill do I use immediately to take care of this emotion versus perhaps the skill of feeling the emotion. But most of the time I'm very hopeful. And first, what I feel like needs to happen is we need to bridge the gap between academics and the research world and the practice world. And that is what I'm hoping to evolve into. I feel like I'm evolving into that in terms of bringing out the theory, bringing out the knowledge, and bridging that into practice and changing that into experiential wisdom, like lived experience wisdom. So that's one way. We need to be talking to each other. That's another thing. The academics and the researchers and the practitioners are oftentimes siloed. The practitioners themselves, we're siloed too. We have the psychoanalysts operating in their institutes, right? We have the transpersonal psychologists operating in their West Coast institutes. I was talking with a colleague about this yesterday. Transpersonal psychology doesn't really exist on the East Coast, right? So nobody's talking. DBTers think that psychoanalysts don't know anything. Psychoanalysts think that DBTers don't know anything. The existential humanists are trying to bridge the divide. It's just kind of a bit of a fragmented, disjointed mess. And I don't see enough cross-pollination going on. So many times I get emails for trainings and mailers in the mail, and they say this DBT training or this IFS training is another super hot modality, right? I can't tell you how I would love to see someone email me with, come to this training that integrates IFS and DBT. Now you're talking my language, because now we're creating dialectics, right?
Yeah.
And now we're putting a little bit of our egos aside. We're putting our letters behind our names. All of a sudden, I'm Chris. I'm not Dr. Deussing. I'm Chris. And I'm able again to come back to that humility and say, okay, I don't know anything, or my ego is playing tricks on me. And with my podcast, Calvin, this has been one of the selfish things with my podcast. And you know this too, because we do this because we learn so much, right?
Yeah.
Anytime I have a bit of a blind spot or a judgment, like I had a judgment about EMDR, and I was like, what's that about, man? I was like, I'm going to invite EMDR onto my podcast. And I learned so much. So much came of that conversation. So I think it's relationship, blowing up the paradigms, coming into deep theory, bridging the gaps, getting excited about it. And also too, with AI and technology, because that's the rage, right? Everyone's like, AI is going to replace therapists. I have severe doubts about that. But how can AI and technology, social media too, how can it be used as a force multiplier? How can we take individuals like myself and yourself and use these platforms to really get the word out there? And I'm not talking about sharing 10 techniques to manage your depression or anxiety, or talking about my particular therapeutic orientation, which is wonderful. I'm talking more so, how can we cross-pollinate and talk about more of these macro issues as well? Because increasingly, I'm facing the paradox of how much do I help my clients adjust to a maladjusted world, right? And so coming into these deeper conversations of not just microscopic learning, but again, going vertical, perhaps even going spiritual, psycho-spiritual, right? And realizing that we need to look at the bigger picture as well, because none of us is operating in a vacuum. And a lot of these therapeutic modalities and orientations actually put us in a vacuum, right? You are this diagnosis, and then therefore we have this orientation to you. And so I think that's a bit of the attitudinal shift we really need to take. And I feel like the profession in some ways is moving there, and in some ways I feel like it's not. I feel like we're at a real inflection point.
There's so much to take away from what you just said.
Well, you're embodying it right here too. This is another thing. The power of the pause. We're in such a culture where we want immediate responses, to the point where myself, I need to make a lot of effort to listen to people's sentences all the way through without formulating what I'm going to ask next. How can we pause and let ideas percolate instead of trying to figure them out, right? I've been doing some research on daydreaming. And there turns out to be a dialectic I've been working on is we have this executive action network in our brain, which is the one that we're engaging right now, trying to figure it out, trying to reduce things, executive function, right? There's this whole other part of our brain, the default mode network, that operates when our brain is unclenched, right? I like to use the example of when we're daydreaming, but even for me, like when you're in the shower, when you don't have your cell phone, the water's washing over you, you're having kind of a somatic experience that way. You may be singing, you may be playing and having fun. And all of a sudden, something you've been thinking about in that pause is like, wow, that was so obvious. So adopting an attitude of the exact opposite of Silicon Valley, instead of moving fast and breaking things, why don't we move slow, contemplate, and figure out how not to break things so that we don't have to put all this effort into putting them back together.
Yeah, that's a powerful, powerful process, Dr. Chris. And I'm just going through just everything you've said. And the humanity behind it all is what I've really succumbed to in terms of my thought process and what you said. And even when you was talking about having someone email you and saying, hey, there's this workshop for DBT and another modality together. I love, and I guess in some ways, because I'm so used to hearing that our field is very isolating, that we're all just in our corners doing our work and there isn't. But from what you said is, no, we can make our field more collaborative. We can make it more invigorating, more fruitful, nourishing, nurturing, um, human. Make
Right.
it more
And
human. Sorry, go ahead.
no, keep going. Actually, you're on it.
Yeah,
More human.
yeah, more human and just more tangible. Because I think, like you said as well, was so key when you said we can leave the letters of our name behind. We don't have to hide behind our titles. We can come as just Chris and Calvin and say, hey, I actually don't even know anything. Like I'm ready to learn. I'm an empty vessel to take on board what you're delivering. And I just want to share. I want to hear your experience. I want you to hear mine. I just want us to just have a conversation and just see where it goes rather than having that kind of conceived, you know, statement or this is what I'm gonna say and this is how I'm gonna speak or this is what I'm gonna be like. It's just no, let's just be, let's just see where it takes us. And then from there we can decide, okay, I'm gonna pair off to the right. You coming with me or you're gonna pair off, oh, what are you doing over? So it's yeah, a journey. A journey.
A journey, and having faith in ourselves and the process. The process. This is one of the things I love about free association,
Yeah.
which, if you work with me as a client, that's the number one rule is to say everything. And you're not to try and organize it, not to be performative, not to, but really try to do the impossible assignment. It's an impossible assignment of saying everything and then having faith that in that process, the outcome will manifest. We get so focused in an outcome-driven culture that we lose sight of the organic process. And two, I think that is a danger with AI because AI is completely outcome oriented. The organicity is missing there. I also just wanted to say with free association,
Yeah.
we have to be open to playing. We're so serious about these things. We're so serious. Oh, excuse me, I'm Dr. Deussing, and yes, I right. But I'm Chris, and we're in the podcast sandbox here with Calvin. We are C-squared, right?
Yeah.
And in our interaction together, in our intersubjective action together here, we are playing and creating so much more than we could create alone, right? And that community is the true currency of how we're going to move this profession forward. Not by how brilliant we are. I think a lot of therapists get caught or theorists get caught in that. Like, how can I prove my brilliance? It's how can I be engaged and connected in community with like-minded individuals, with not like-minded individuals as well, to create tension and dialectics so that we can really move and have healthy conversation and healthy cross-pollination. I don't have to agree with you. Through that tension can come great growth, right? Can we have those types of conversations instead of like on LinkedIn? A lot of times I'll see a post and then, sometimes in the comments, you'll get like kind of a vitriolic thread where people are just trying to be right. and that leads us nowhere.
So true. So true. Dr. Chris, before you go, I want to throw some fun, rapid questions at you for the listeners to answer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
If you could work anywhere remotely in the world, Dr. Chris, where would it be?
Hawaii.
Why Hawaii?
I have a lot of family there, and it's Hawaii.
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm half Filipino, so it's kind of in my DNA. I mean,
DNA.
the Philippines are. I'm half Filipino, but a lot of Filipinos in Hawaii. Oh my gosh, and the food and the scuba dive. Yeah, it's Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Oh, and I'm licensed in Hawaii. That's also too what came to mind.
Do you have a favorite quote, Dr. Chris?
Yeah, it's not the length of life, it's the depth of life. Ralph Waldo Emerson. I used to be really heavily into scuba diving, And that was written on my scuba diving fin so that whoever was swimming behind me, we were talking about depth of life.
Amazing. Do you have a favorite book or film?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I I need a top three books. In
Top
terms of
three.
psychology,
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Always have to go back to that one. Um, Denial of Death by Ernest Becker, and what would be a third one? There's too many that come to mind, but I think one of my favorite books might be one that isn't written yet. Perhaps one you and I write together. Perhaps the one that's being written as we speak right now. These ideas percolating. So actually, no, I'm going to flip that question on its head. My favorite book is yet to come.
I love that answer. And last question, Dr. Chris, I want you to finish this sentence for me. If it wasn't for therapy, I would.
Have an ice cream stand on the island of Fiji. No, if it wasn't for therapy, I honestly, I probably wouldn't be alive today.
Mm,
Therapy has saved my life. I've been in my own process for over 2 decades, and, therapy and the incredible, therapists that have worked with me, there have been 2 analysts that have literally saved my life. So, to be straight up no chaser with you, without therapy, there's a good chance I wouldn't be here, and I don't mean that in a morbid or macabre way.
yeah.
I just mean that in terms of therapy can be truly life-saving. It's not just symptom-based. It really can change and save lives.
Thank you so much for that answer, Dr. Chris. Dr. Chris, someone's heard you today and they want to get in touch. What's the best way someone can contact you?
Just get online and Google Christopher Deussing, Deussing. The name of my group practice is Integrative DBT and Psychotherapy, www.integrativedbt.com. And I'm all over LinkedIn. You can see me there. And I know you'll be posting my information. It's interesting, though. The world has a way of finding each other. We have a way of finding each other without trying. So,
So true. And I know you mentioned your podcast. Could you give the listeners the name and how they can listen to that also?
absolutely. The Talking Cure with Dr. D. It's on YouTube and also SoundCloud. I'm working to get it on more Spotify and the other platforms, like Smooth and Polished, like your podcast, which I love. I love that logo. The logo is beautiful. But those are the 2 ways that you can find it.
Ah, amazing. Dr. Chris, thank you so much for today. Continual blessings, and thank you so much for the work that you do. I appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone does too. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been your host, Calvin Anderson, for the Checking With podcast. We've had the impeccable, the so many words I can say about this gentleman, not even just from today, but just in general. Dr. Chris Deussing. Please check out his stuff. Amazing, amazing content, and just so much information and wisdom, but at the core of it, just so much empathy, compassion. Take care. Speak soon. God bless.
God bless.